So this is my boat. This is a 1995 Crown Line. It's like an 18-foot. It's got the 4.3 liter V6 Mercury motor in it. And let me tell you a little story about the first day of owning this boat. And I promise everything in this story is true. At some point it's almost going to sound made up, but it was quite the experience. So let's get to it. All right, so the year was 2021. It was pretty much peak COVID times, and kind of like everybody else in the world, we were kind of looking for something to do outdoors and everything. And so this lake that I'm at right now, we live about 15 minutes or so from this lake. And then, so my wife grew up, she always had a boat growing up and stuff that I did not. So personally, didn't have a lot of experience with boats at all, but she kind of thought it'd be a great idea to get a boat. You know, me being into power sports stuff, I was definitely on board with that. And also during that time, it was stimulus time, so everybody was getting stimulus checks. And very fortunate for us, the power sport industry was doing really well, so we had some stimulus money, so we're like, let's go buy a boat. So I started looking on Facebook and found this boat. So like I said, this was a 1995 Crown Line. It's got the 4.3 liter Mercury motor in it and stuff. So the guy that was selling it, I actually kind of knew because I sold him a couple four-wheelers over the years, and he was always pretty particular on the stuff that he bought. So I thought, well, it's kind of nice knowing the person a little bit and trying to get some story on it. So we ended up paying $7,000 on this boat. Like I said, this was in 2021. Prices of all the outdoor stuff was definitely pretty high. I'm sure it's probably not worth that anymore. But, so yeah, it was about, 45 minutes south of Lincoln. We went out, picked it up, everything seemed pretty much fine. So we kind of did the deal and everything and brought it back home. This was kind of early in the year too. I think it was probably like March or something like that. So it wasn't quite boating season yet. And so sat in the driveway for a while. And the story I kind of got on the boat is they used it multiple times the previous year, but we're just kind of looking to upgrade and everything. Had it winterized and everything the previous year, and so we said, oh, should totally be ready to go. So we're like, okay, that's great. So like I said, the boat sat in the driveway for a good few weeks or so, maybe a month, I don't remember exactly anymore, but basically, like I said, I was not very familiar with boats at all, but my father-in-law has a lot of experience, so our plan was to kind of find a time for him to come out, and he'll kind of take me out for the first time on the boat and stuff. And so we finally found a date. He came out and started heading out to the lake and everything, had everything ready to go. Said we got out to the lake, put the boat into the water, and as we were putting the boat into the water, I noticed that one of the tires on the trailer was almost flat. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like, this thing had been sitting for, I don't know, almost a month and never had any issues with tires. So like, well, luckily, just kind of by chance, I had a spare tire sitting in the back of the pickup, which was actually from one of my ATV trailers, but same bolt pattern and stuff. So I was like, well, I got a spare along, that's fine. So put the boat in the water and then just parked the trailer back. Figured we'd deal with that when we got back to it. And then I started the boat up, took a few cranks, eventually started, smoked a little bit, but I was like, that's probably just from the, you know, from however they winterized it, so I wasn't too worried about that. Motor sounded good, it idled smooth and stuff, it was nice and quiet, and so we took off. And so right where we're at right now, we're just about past the brake area here, and just started to get into the throttle a little bit, and then all of a sudden we just heard a clunk, 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 clunk. It was just grinding, knocking, just making the worst noises in the world. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I was basically like, yeah, let's just turn around, and there's no point in going anymore because the boat sounded horrible. Even like down at idle, it was still making noise whenever it was in gear and stuff. And like, yep, let's give up. Let's just go back. I don't know what's going on here, but this thing sounds horrible all of a sudden. So we went back, parked at the dock, went and grabbed the trailer. Tire was completely flat at this point. So I was like, well, swap a tire. So I pulled my jack out of the pickup, which honestly I'd never used before, just the, you know, the standard jack that went with it. And then was jacking up, grabbed all the tools out of it. Noticed I had the little speed wrench, you know, the U-shaped wrench that goes with it. Was missing kind of like the bigger T-handle part that, you know, really gives you some leverage, which that's kind of important later on. But the little speed wrench worked just fine. Got it up, got the trailer lifted up, swapped tire and stuff. That tire was, well, actually it seemed like it had air. Loaded the boat back up. Like, all right, defeated, let's just go home. And notice once we got the boat on the trailer, that tire basically had no air in it either, which not the end of the world. Went down to the marina, just rolled it down there and filled the tire up. And so we're like, okay, boat's back on the trailer. Something's wrong with it. We'll have to get this figured out. I don't know. Live to fight another day, basically. Started pulling out and everything. And then so you see right up here, this is a big dam. This thing goes kind of all across, I don't know, it's probably a mile long or so. But pulling the boat behind us with pickup and everything, and I'm about a quarter of the way across this dam, and I realized, well, I kind of looked back behind the mirror, I noticed my rear right tire was leaning about 45 degrees. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I stopped on this dam, and this is basically a 2-lane, you know, one way each direction. And basically the wheel, the bearings in it just disintegrated, and the wheel was just sitting on the spindle. There was basically nothing holding it in place. So I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm a quarter of the way across this dam. It was probably a harder job to drive straight forward and go to the end. So what I decided to do was basically back up, kind of back over in that area over there. There's a little camp spot area. So I decided to back this trailer up, probably about a quarter mile, and try to figure out what was going on and see if we could fix this axle and tire and stuff. Like, okay, the boat's broken, now the trailer's broken, like this is ridiculous. So I start backing up, and I'm just trying to ease it because like the wheel's just wobbling back and forth and everything. And wheel eventually falls off. I mean, I got, I don't know, maybe 100 feet, and then the wheel falls off, trailer drops to the ground. It's like, oh my gosh. Well, I guess I'll just jack it back up and just kind of set the wheel back on the spindle and see if I can keep going and everything. So yeah, the jack part. So I'll get my jack back out, I grab the little speed wrench. Now that the boat's sitting on the trailer, that little speed wrench does not have enough torque to lift this boat up with the trailer and everything. It's like, oh, this sucks. I got no way to lift this thing up. So luckily there was just kind of this random older guy. He kind of stopped behind us, asked what was going on. I'm like, yeah, we're having all sorts of issues. So I was like, can I borrow your jack at all? He was like, oh yeah, of course, yeah. It's a brand new pickup. I don't know where the jack's at, but if you can find it, go ahead. Yep, borrow it. So found the jack, jacked it up, just kind of set the wheel and stuff back on the spindle and just kind of let it kind of balance there, and then decided to back it up some more. And well, that wheel fell off probably 3 or 4 more times. Same process, wheel falls off, trailer drops to the ground, jack it up, set the wheel back on. Like, okay, finally I get the thing back to like a little parking area. I'm like, we're just gonna park it here. I'm gonna like go back into town, see if I get the bearings or something like that. And so I'm putting jack back into place in the guy's pickup, and it was kind of tucked underneath his rear passenger seat, and I tucked it all back in there. Went to slam the seat down, seat didn't really latch in. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. Tried it again, nothing. And then I lifted the seat back up and realized that I was using my phone for the flashlight, set my phone into one of the little linking mechanisms in the seat, and it just crushed my phone, completely broke the screen on everything. Phone was not usable at all. So now my phone was broken, which luckily my father-in-law was along, we had a phone to use and stuff. But so like, okay, we're unhooking the boat, we're giving up. I went back into town, I bought like $300 worth of random taper bearings, kind of random sizes that I thought might work. Went back up there, and like we started this process probably, I don't know, I mean, we got the boat in the water maybe like 4 o'clock. It was like late afternoon. At this point, I think it's probably like 7 or 8 o'clock now. Like it's starting to get dark almost. And then I bought a whole bunch of bearings, brought them back. The spindle was so chewed up that the correct size bearings wouldn't really work. So I had a set that was just a little oversized. Like, well, we're just gonna make these things work. Put it on there, and well, the wheel wasn't gonna fall off, but I was at least gonna get it home. So drove about the 15 minutes back to the house, parked it there. Like, okay, this sucks. We're finally home at like 10 o'clock at this point. With the boat's not working, it ran for a whole 10 minutes before it started making noise. Trailer wheel fell off. Like pretty much everything that could go wrong was going wrong. My phone was broken. I was not in the mood to talk to anybody. And then so finally, like the next day or maybe a couple days later, brought it down to a shop that's kind of close to my shop, a boat shop, and dropped off there and said, figure out what's going on with it. So what ended up happening is like the bellows were cracked on the boat, and it must have got water in there, and then over winter it kind of froze and everything, and basically got water in it, things froze. the whole gimbal bearing was bad, and like huge noise. Basically ended up replacing everything on the bottom end, which ended up being like a $3,000 repair on our $7,000 boat. So we were 10 grand into it already and hadn't even used it once. And I still had to fix the trailer, which the shop that I brought it to, like, oh, we don't work on trailer stuff. So I brought it to, just like a tire shop, repair place and stuff, and asked if they'd mess with the trailer. And basically, like, yeah, the spindle's way too gone. We can't really fix anything there. We need a whole new axle. So I'm like, well, I'll order an axle. I'll put that on there. I can weld that in place. That's not a big deal. So finally got the boat fixed the whole axle and everything, put a whole new axle. And then, yeah, if I remember right too, the whole hub was bad on that because it was just rubbing on there and basically destroyed the hub. So it was new axle, new hub and stuff, and then put a new tire on that side too, but the tire wasn't holding there anymore. And yeah, so that was my first experience owning a boat. It really sucked. I'm sure many other people can probably relate. But yeah, now the boat seems to run fine, and I'm pretty much committed to this thing. I don't think we'll ever get rid of it, because I don't ever want the experience of messing with another boat, not knowing what's already been done to it or not. So this is our boat. It seems to get used a couple times a year. This is the first time I've had it this year, and it actually started, so just happy with that. Still not making any noise, and I'm hoping this thing will just keep lasting. But yeah, if anybody else has got a good boat story, leave it down in the comments, let me know.